Good afternoon and welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. I'm your host, Melvin Thompson. I'm the executive director of the Endeleo Institute. Endeleo is the Swahili word for progress, growth, and development. We are the nonprofit arm of Trinity United Church of Christ, located at 400 West 95th Street on the far south side of Chicago. Our mission is revitalizing the 95th Street corridor, and we are having a wonderful time doing it. We're here to talk about our farmers market, of course, because that's what the theme of By Any Means Necessary is all about. But there are other issues that we do that we link into the broadcast, and so we're just happy that you're back again. Our call-in number today is 312-738-1060. If you got a question, a comment on your mind, a lot of area news today, this week in the city, so we're going to definitely talk a little bit about that. But yeah, just wanted to recap this past weekend. A little wet out there, right, T? Kind of got rained out a little bit, but it still didn't damper the spirit of what we were trying to do. As many of you know, our prison ministry at Trinity United Church of Christ does a wonderful clothing giveaway, and so we had a nice number of people who still came out, braved the rain, and took advantage of the clothing that was made available by the generosity of the community. And so we're really thankful for that. And of course, next door we had our farmers market, which again kind of, was a little less of a crowd because the rain was pretty consistent, and we knew that. I mean, the forecast was really pretty straightforward that we'd have rain throughout the day, and yet our farmers still came out. Folks came out, got what they needed, and that's just a good thing. And we've been blessed with such wonderful weather for every season that we've been out there supporting Trinity's Farmers Market, that a little rain will never damper our spirits or the activity, particularly the economic opportunities that we get to enjoy with African American farmers doing business with African Americans in an African American community, as well as the vendors that support and complement the efforts that we're trying to achieve. It's just it's cooperative economics, and I've said many times that we had a planning report done in Washington Heights about 2 years ago in 2016 by the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, and in that plan it stated that we were losing $198 million out of our community. They use the term leaking, so money leaks out of our community, and that's because of the fact that we have very few amenities in our community, like a grocery store, like retail, quality retail that is, in the form of restaurants, sit-down restaurants, bakeries, a butcher shop, a hardware store. I'll share with you a couple of the community forums in which I had a chance to speak in Washington Heights, and it was very enlightening to hear from certain communities about what the needs are, because what I've been doing at our community visioning sessions, and I'll share a little bit about that in a few minutes, but what I've been doing and what we've been trying to ascertain in the last several months from the community is what the community would like to see, in addition to what we know, healthy food, which is missing in our community in terms of healthy food access, and just the things that other communities have. And so it's been very enlightening to see and hear from community members at our sessions and the forums where I've gone and actually been able to bring those visioning sessions to those communities, and it's been very consistent in terms of the need. I'll share, I was at a public housing development which is next door to our church on 95th Street, the Lowden Homes public housing development. And I got a chance, courtesy of one of our associate pastors, that extended me the invitation to speak to a contingent of about 30 very concerned residents that live there. And I can tell you, they gave me a laundry list when asked what they'd like to see in the community, and number one was a grocery store. Amazing, right? But I mean, that's a universal theme, because healthy food and nutrition are very important to everyone. And so that's why we do farmers markets, just to show you our overhead. Please eat fresh, buy local, and buy any greens necessary. Our farmers market runs from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Every Saturday until the rest of the month. Our last week actually, will be September 29th. So there are roughly about 4 more market days that will be open out there at 95th and Normal. So I was mentioning that because in talking to the residents at Lowden Homes, they were not shy, because I posed the question, like, if money was not an issue, if anything were possible along 95th Street, I got a real litany of things, from a hardware store to a grocery store, a laundromat, a clothing store, quality clothing, a drugstore. And these are the things, a restaurant, these are the things that are missing from our community. And so I see this consistency that we're going to address. And so I wanted to share with you, and I shared with you the last couple of weeks, about our next visioning meeting that we're going to have at the Woodson Library Auditorium this September 8th, this Saturday, from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We've kind of staggered the time, so we're not getting you up really early in the morning all the time on Saturday, because we appreciate and know that your Saturdays can be busy. So this meeting will be Saturday from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I think I have the overhead for this. So if you can make this at all, this would be very, very informative. We're going to have some African American developers, African American architects that have actually done some exceptional work in the city of Chicago, and who will be able to speak quite intelligently about, what it takes. Because again, we've been talking to folks about what it is, that they'd like to see. And now we'd like to get some really smart African American developers and architects that have actually walked the walk and been able to work within the city's parameters to get certain, incredible things done in the communities, in the outlying communities on both the south and west side. So we're really, really looking forward to this. The title of this particular meeting, as you can see, is A Walkable Washington Heights. And what do I mean by a walkable Washington Heights? Well, if you look at the picture, you see folks walking along the corridor. It's a bright, beautiful day. The lighting is wonderful. Of course, it's a sunny day, but there are new street lights. The storefronts are presentable, and folks feel very comfortable because the storefronts are occupied. It's vibrant. And that's what we seek to do along the 95th Street corridor. We don't have that right now, and so that's what we're putting out into the atmosphere, that we want to see a walkable community. And what I can tell you is there are certain what they call walkable scores that I think range from 0 to 100, with 100 being the optimal walkable neighborhood, which means folks can freely get to and from in their neighborhood by just walking out of the door and getting to the amenities that they need. I should tell you that the walkable score in Washington Heights is, I don't know, I had the residents at Lowden take a stab at guessing what that was, and actually they got pretty close, because I think I heard a couple of 60s, I heard a couple of 20s, I heard a couple of 40s, but the actual score is 56, which isn't anything to write home about, and that's actually categorized as somewhat walkable. And when you look at the definition of it, and you can simply Google walkable scores, because this is a national effort, and what's cool about it is you can do that to your particular neighborhood. So wherever you have a corridor in your specific neighborhood, you can just Google it, plug in your community, and you'll get a walkable score. So what a 56 actually denotes is somewhat walkable, and that's probably generous, because what it actually says is 90% of what you do in a car. So you travel outside of your community. So you basically use a car for practically everything that you need, which of course includes grocery stores, restaurants. Whenever you want a good meal or something in the Washington Heights community, you typically have to get in your car and drive out of the neighborhood. I know a number of the residents that I spoke to tell me that they've gotten on the bus and gone as far as Evergreen Park just to buy their groceries from the Pete's Market that's located, I believe, at 95th and Francisco. So you've got residents in one community on the far south side of Chicago traveling outside of it to a suburb to actually buy what they need. And I've seen on any given occasion folks getting off of the 95th Street bus, arms loaded down with groceries, and that is just a normalized behavior that should not be, and that has to change, and we need to be the catalyst for that change. And earlier this week we heard that there will be political change, and so I think the biggest reminder of the decision that was made by the city's mayor today, over the last couple of days, that we're still kind of, digesting and processing, is nothing lasts forever, and things are ever evolving in life. And so, we shouldn't get too comfortable with anything. And so, this is an opportunity to be catalyst of change in our community. I've said this for the last couple of weeks, that this would be a very, very important vote. And now, with the current person not being a participant in that now, it's even more relevant and even more important that we really become strategic in who we select, given the fact that these amenities that are in our community are no longer here or haven't been here, and who gives us the best chance of making sure that our needs and our assessed needs are being met. That's really what you have to ask yourself. And I one of the things that's going to happen is I'm predicting that this will be almost a circus type atmosphere. But at the end of the day, this is a very, very serious issue in terms of who will lead this city. Leadership is not to be taken lightly. As a community leader, it's often a lonely road when you have to really make decisions that are going to, affect your community. And, I'm sure there was a lot of, consternation in terms of making the decision that was made by the mayor this week. A lot of things to weigh, and, you get attached to it. And so, that should be, the same level of concentration and strategic, analysis that we should be doing. And if you don't think that, we should be doing that, look at the circumstances that we're living in our respective communities. I don't know if there's anyone that can come in and stem the kind of violence and reckless behavior that we're seeing in communities, in black and brown communities right now. I don't know that person has a magic wand that can do that. But I do know that economic investment is a precursor to better quality of life for just about anyone. And so we've been denied that on the far south and west sides of this city. And so that's the place to start. So, if you're going to put together a wish list of what that ideal candidate might look like, that might be able to work with community organizations like Endeleo, and like all these wonderful, my counterparts and, all of the community organizations. I mean, I'd really like to see, someone that really spoke out about, the power of community organizations in terms of how they can drive some of the investment that we're seeing, that we have lacked in our community for so long, to have such a community focus. So we're really, we really have a large pool of candidates, but at the same time, only one can actually handle or take on that mantle. So we really need to look at the backgrounds of these people, who are, professing to lead this city. It's a major job, and obviously the people that you put around you, the connections that you make, the partnerships that you engage in will be critical. And I actually like what's floating around in terms of the limit to how long whoever that may be becomes, because I think it's a turnover. I think it's a healthy turnover in this city. That's what that is needed in terms of knowing that you're going to have to, compete. You're going to have to do the job to stay there, and then you're not even, guaranteed beyond 8 years to be there. And so it gives the element of turnover, which I think is healthy, because I think there's a complacency, and it's a dangerous thing when too much power is relegated to one faction of people. At least it's been proven, and so I like that idea, and I hope that can come to fruition. But better than that, I hope that we as a community, really strategize in terms of, what can make our communities more conducive to economic development, quality education. I've certainly said that, for the remainder of my time as a director, that I'm going to be more laser focused on education and what that actually means in terms of not just matriculating and graduating to college, but the education, the life education that's needed by our young people in order for them to compete and be successful, no matter what vocation they happen to choose. And so I think that's a real place that Endeleo can really have a greater impact. I think the work that we're doing right now is important, but I think it will be the cornerstone, more of the cornerstone of what we're trying to achieve as an organization that comes from a faith institution. That there's a lot more that we can do, and I think we're working with a number of high schools on the south side, and Finger Academy is one that jumps out, because we're actually taking residence in the school as of this week, T? So we're officially in there, and we're going to be imparting our college and career readiness program. We're excited about it, to work with Principal Smith there and the whole team, to really grow help grow enrollment, help grow the community. I'm looking forward to talking to, the top administrators at CPS about, a community-based organization actually being a part of the, the educational environment in and around Finger. And so we're really excited about what can happen from a health, education, and community development standpoint, because I think that it really is going to take all three of those elements, because the violence and the unemployment and the disinvestment, all of those things are directly the result of what we're seeing, in our schools, and why there's a disenchantment and disillusionment of young people, even at early ages, that don't see themselves at 25 and 30 years old because of what's happening. And who can blame them? They're in an environment where they don't see a lot of aspirational things happening. And so the Endeleo Institute is not the only answer, but it's certainly going to be one of the solutions that I think we have a lot of strong partners in the health space. We're going to create more partnerships throughout the course of our existence on the far south side, and I think that that's going to morph its way into the education space, because there's no way you can talk about a healthy community without quality education. There's just no way you're not going to be able to do that, and so you can't be what you can't see. And so we're going to have a speaker series. We're going to do a lot more mentoring, and these mentors will be assigned. They won't be just folks that'll stop by, say a bunch of encouraging words and then, ride off into the sunset. We're going to get commitments from mentors to partner with our students, because there's a lot of voids that we can fill with people who've been successful, and even people who've had trials and tribulations and are still trying to figure it out. I don't think that we always have to have people who are way up here that are talking to our young people as if you can make it, I did it, but people who are in the midst of their own struggles. And so we really want to keep this as real as possible, and engage young people to say, hey, you know what? I'm not far from you. I live in this community. I've come from communities just like this, and that you can make it. And I think people aren't asked. I had a meeting yesterday with a young brother who was just telling me about how he conducts, how he used to at the Urban League, used to talk to young brothers and just ask them, how was their day? What kind of day did they have? And he would tell me how, folks would come up to him later and just say, man, nobody's ever asked me, how my day went. And I think that's incredible, that, we don't engage young people as if they're, young humans, and they have feelings and they have things that they go through that are rarely, talked about. And so, we're bringing, I think, a different perspective as a community-based organization. We're rooted in, historically black colleges and Afrocentric education. I think that's going to rub off at Finger, and in the wider community. We're going to have a village mentality that we're going to bring to that community, and we hope to extend what we're doing along the 95th Street corridor into the community. And we're definitely going to be speaking at the mid-level, at the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level, in our elementary and junior high school levels. And so we're excited about all the things that we've got planned. But first and foremost, what we want you to do is come out and voice your opinion on September 8th. I'll show this to you really quickly again. Walkable Washington Heights, September 8th, this Saturday from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock at the Woodson Library Auditorium. Come in, voice your opinion, hear from some folks that are doing this in our community, and we will look for you there by any means necessary. See you next week.